Ramping up its vaccination rollout plan after a lull over the holidays.
We heard loudly from people this past 36 to 48 hours. They want us rolling all the time, and we are.
After apologizing for a slow start, the head of Ontario's Vaccine Distribution Task Force gives an update on the province's ambitious plans with a vow to speed things up. Plus,
for many Ontarians, it's extremely shocking and very disappointing.
The province's finance minister comes under fire after leaving the country for vacation, despite his government urging people to stay home over the holidays. And
sometimes I wouldn't even buy something from the drive-thru. I just wanted to see him.
A Tim Hortons worker in Vaughan gets a special surprise from those he brings joy to every day at the drive-thru. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Retired General Rick Hillier is apologizing for the pause in the province's vaccine rollout over the holidays. The head of Ontario's Vaccine Distribution Task Force giving an update today, saying things are ramping back up. Nearly 20 locations are now administering the Pfizer vaccine, and the province is expecting the arrival of a second shot as early as tomorrow. Greg Ross has the details.
In hindsight, it was the wrong decision.
General Rick Hillier, the head of the province's COVID-19 vaccine task force, admitting today it was a mistake to pause vaccinations over Christmas. A stark contrast from what he said just a day earlier on CBC News.
And so we felt in the slightly longer term, it was better to take a little pause.
But mounting backlash from the health community clearly had an impact.
We heard loudly from people this past 36 to 48 hours. They want us rolling all the time, and we are. We will be working straight through. We will not take any more days off until we win this war against COVID-19.
I do very much appreciate the acknowledgement and the accountability that he took.
This ER physician, who was critical of the province yesterday, says today's tone was very much needed.
I think is important for him to be the leading member of this task force to admit when there's been mistakes.
As of this morning, the province reported just over 14,000 vaccinations in nearly 2 weeks since they started administering them, ranking Ontario last among all provinces for vaccinations per 100,000 people. But Hillier says there is reason for optimism.
We expect tomorrow to receive about 50,000 Moderna vaccines.
Hillier says the Moderna vaccine is more versatile because it doesn't have to be stored at temperatures below minus 70 degrees Celsius like the Pfizer vaccine being used now, which makes it much easier to bring directly to patients.
We will take it into those long-term care homes and into the retirement homes to look after those people who are resident there and somewhat held captive to the COVID-19 virus.
Hillier also floated another idea to speed up vaccinations.
I would ask Health Canada to relook the Moderna vaccine and see if we can make that a one-shot vaccine and give us that greater capacity to go out and vaccinate people even faster than we plan on doing now.
Both Health Canada and Moderna Canada have responded to that, saying while the first dose of Moderna's vaccine could give about 80% immunity, it's uncertain how long that immunity would last, and they are still recommending 2 doses. With hundreds of thousands of doses of both Moderna and Pfizer scheduled to come to Ontario in January, Hillier says the province is still on track to meet its vaccination targets. But the slow start has many feeling a little less optimistic.
I absolutely will believe it when I see it. It's great to have the plans in place. We need the stuff in people's arms at the end of the day.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
So when will you be eligible for a COVID-19 shot? We have all the details on the 3 phases of the vaccine rollout on our website, cbc.ca/Toronto, or you can download the CBC News app. Well, we now know where Ontario Finance Minister Rod Phillips has been. The minister confirming tonight he's been vacationing in St. Bart's since mid-December. This despite the province repeatedly urging people to stay home during the holidays. The Premier's office tells CBC that Doug Ford was not aware of the minister's trip and only learned about it after Phillips had left the country. As Dahlia Ashley reports, some are demanding the minister be held accountable.
Let me be clear.
For weeks now, Ontario's officials have urged residents to stay home as much as possible. Finance Minister Rod Phillips even tweeting this video on Christmas Eve.
And I want to thank each and every one of you for what we are doing to protect our most vulnerable while we celebrate this very, very special but challenging holiday season.
But as it turned out, Phillips wasn't home. He was on vacation. In a statement this evening, Phillips confirms he has been on holiday in the Caribbean, saying, "I deeply regret traveling over the holidays. It was a mistake and I apologize. I left on a personally paid for trip to St. Bart's on December 13th following the end of the legislative session." The Premier also releasing a statement tonight expressing his disappointment, saying, "I have let the minister know that his decision to travel is completely unacceptable and that it will not be tolerated again by him or any member of our cabinet and caucus." The opposition, though, is demanding consequences.
It sends the wrong message, and the minister should be held accountable. And I think that the Premier has a responsibility in figuring out what that looks like.
Meanwhile, Phillips' constituents in Ajax are not pleased.
He's not practicing what he preaches.
These people are telling people to lock down, but they themselves do not follow their own rules.
It's not fair because everybody else is doing what they're supposed to do. It's part of the community.
At today's COVID briefing, Ontario's Associate Chief Medical Officer of Health reminding to stay put.
Well, I can't really comment on what the minister's done or not done, but obviously the public health advice has been and continues to be not to travel outside of the country unless it's absolutely essential.
Phillips stated he is making arrangements to return to Ontario immediately and will begin a 14-day quarantine as soon as he's back. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
The province is reporting a record 2,553 new COVID-19 infections today, along with a record high number of people testing positive for the virus. Dr. Barbara Yaffe explained what might be behind those numbers.
The numbers we're seeing today, of course, would not be related to the Christmas holidays. It's too early for us to be seeing the results of any get-togethers that may have occurred. But what we have learned from our colleagues at Toronto Public Health is that the increase in their daily numbers can in part be attributed to pre-Christmas shopping trips, often in groups.
Yaffe says there's been just a single day since December 15th when the province didn't record over 2,000 new daily infections. The percent positivity rate, which measures the percentage of tests coming back positive, is now close to 10%. Meanwhile, officials say there are still just 3 known cases of the UK COVID variant in Ontario. To Scarborough now, where 5 more residents of a long-term care home have died from COVID-19. That brings the number of deaths at Tender Care Living Centre to 48. Today, families protested outside the care home, saying they are very concerned for their loved ones and want to make sure they are getting the care that they need. Talia Ricci has more.
After days of speaking out, families showed up at Tender Care Living Centre.
To make more awareness for the government to actually do something.
Starting to get tired of the, trying to, get our voices heard, but not seeing any action.
North York General Hospital has temporarily taken over the home. It says progress is being made to manage the outbreak, including securing more nurses. But Eng is still worried about his mother-in-law who's tested positive for the virus.
We had a video call with her today. We could see that she's in bed. She's obviously lost weight. We can tell by the look on her face. Her eyes are sunken. At least we got to see her.
My grandmother has been through so much, and she deserves dignity. And I know that one day, she's going to get old and she's going to pass, but at least pass with dignity.
The Ministry of Long-Term Care has said it's using all tools available to help keep residents safe and that Red Cross is ready to step in and help. On Monday, it announced the creation of a new specialized care center to provide space for residents at long-term care homes that are managing outbreaks.
And there's promise as the long-term care-friendly Moderna vaccine arrives this week.
Public health units will be taking over the lead in planning and coordinating the implementation of the vaccination across the province, starting with long-term care facilities and high-risk retirement homes.
Today, the official opposition called on the Premier to urgently replace the Minister of Long-Term Care. One expert says some measures were taken after the first wave to better protect the vulnerable, but not enough.
We should not be having these outbreaks, these cases, and these deaths in long-term care. We should not be having this at all, and clearly not all lessons were learned and not all steps were taken to protect the individuals who live in long-term care.
As families say communication from overwhelmed staff continues to be an issue, their own group chat now has exceeded more than 30 families.
We want to be here for each other and support each other and, act fast because every day that goes by, unfortunately, we've been seeing deaths every day for the past 10 days.
Not just for our parents, but for everybody else that in the future could have parents in the long-term care facility. Or even at some point when we all get old and we end up in there. We all need to be taken care of at some point.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
One person is critically injured after a fire at a downtown hotel. It happened near Wellington and Yonge at Hotel Victoria around 4 o'clock this morning. Fire services found one person without vital signs when they arrived. Paramedics revived the patient and transported them to hospital in critical condition. The cause of the fire is now under investigation. Well, the pandemic has created many unexpected challenges, making us rethink how we interact and function in groups. For educators, it has meant seeking innovative ways to teach from a distance. As Deanna Sumanek-Johnson reports, some are bridging that gap by thinking out of the box.
When school suddenly went online in the spring, third grade French immersion teacher Steve Masson knew he had to keep his students engaged somehow.
I grabbed my iPhone and I had no idea what I was doing, and I just started filming, and I filmed my first video.
As the months went by, Massa's energetic YouTube videos grew in complexity and in popularity.
Bonjour tout le monde, c'est Monsieur Steve.
In his videos, he takes his students on field trips, talks about holidays, all in French. Videos he kept making even after he returned to class.
And I know there's a lot of teachers out there who, aren't as comfortable with technology, and that's cool, and that's totally fine. But it's possible. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
Post-secondary educators face their own challenges when classes went online. Chief among them, teaching practical, hands-on knowledge that normally requires labs or students working directly with people. At Bow Valley College, a new virtual reality lab is helping nurses in training get a sense of what it's like to be one-on-one with a patient.
There's nothing like seeing your patient bent over their bedside table trying to take a breath and struggling for breath. And with the toggles, they can actually feel, and then they see and they hear what that patient is experiencing.
At Dalhousie University in Halifax, this professor created a course loosely based on the board game Pandemic. Students worked in real time, racing against the clock.
We had 4 teams. There were researchers, there were scientists, there were medics, and there were quarantine experts. When one of their moves were executed, the clock was ticking, and they'd have 72 to 48 hours to execute their next move before the next team could go.
In case you're wondering, the students doing the simulation took on the pandemic and won, just as these educators did by keeping learning exciting during tough times. Deanna Sumanek-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Still ahead, more people are keeping their pets this year compared to last. And advocates say it has something to do with a program that helps owners look after their furry friends during this pandemic. We'll tell you more about it coming up. Plus,
above seasonal temperatures tomorrow, but it will come with some rainfall. Your full forecast after the break.
The number of animals surrendered to Toronto City shelters has dropped dramatically during the pandemic. Last year, about 2,500 animals were surrendered. This year, just 1,500. As Farah Morale explains, it has to do in part with a program the city introduced to keep owners and their pets together during COVID.
These days, Racy Sevilla is spending more time than ever with her dogs, Bacon, Chewy, and Turkey. When COVID hit, her work as a cleaner at commercial buildings dried up. As the months passed, her savings dwindled. She started to worry about how she'd continue to take care of her pets.
It's a bittersweet. You see them all the time, but you know that you're thinking the next day, oh my gracious, the container of the puppy food is getting less and less and less. It's really heartbreaking having that thought, because I never expect that I'm going to be in this position.
Sevilla learned about a city program set up in response to the pandemic, which offered support for pet owners. She was accepted and received a gift card for pet supplies.
And I was like, I'm so happy that this one came.
We were really nervous initially because we thought, oh my goodness, like if people lose jobs and stuff, they may not be able to keep their pets and things like that. And so we were really surprised that they could keep them, that we could support them.
Toronto Animal Services started the program in the spring, funded by grants and donations. The goal, it says, to keep people from giving up their pets during COVID.
Financial issues were a big deal. Other things were like if they were having behavioral problems with their pets or medical issues that they needed help with that. And so just trying to make those connections.
Animal Services says the program appears to be working. From January to the end of November 2019, a little more than 2,500 pets were surrendered to Toronto Animal Services. This year, during the same period, 1,435 were surrendered.
We have managed to cut our shelter population almost in half over just through COVID. And we have maintained it over the months.
The city hopes it can keep it running in the coming months, so pet owners still struggling because of COVID don't have to make any tough decisions over the holidays. Farah Morale, CBC News, Toronto.
Partly cloudy in the city tonight with a few flurries developing overnight and tapering off in the morning. Let's bring in our meteorologist, Nick Cernkovich, who has the full forecast for us. And Nick, nice to see a little bit of sunshine earlier today. I know we do have some wet weather in store.
Hi, Kelda. Well, we're talking about two stories here, really, tomorrow. One is going to be the warm temperatures, above seasonal temperatures. The second is, well, a little bit of rainfall. Let's talk about the temperatures first. We're sitting at -2 degrees, or that's what we hit today through the afternoon. That's more or less about the seasonal mark, but well above seasonal as we head through the next 24 hours. And the reason for that is this system that's pushing into southwestern Ontario tonight. Now, it's going to bring some light rainfall to the Windsor area, or snowfall rather, to the Windsor area through tonight. And then by the time we hit about 5 a.m. this morning, we're looking at that light snowfall across the Golden Horseshoe, about trace to 2 centimeters or so. It stops by about 8 a.m. Mixed precipitation in southwestern Ontario. Late morning, the risk for some patchy freezing rain around the Toronto area. And then everybody switching over to rainfall unless you're well up to the north. And rain showers throughout the day tomorrow before the system clears out. And then we're looking at generally good conditions heading into Thursday and even Friday for the better part of Friday as well. In terms of snowfall accumulations, generally speaking, for most places, about trace to 2 centimeters of snow. So not a big snowfall event, but enough that it might slick up the roads a little bit. Winds are going to be gusty as well out of the south for the Windsor area as we move through tomorrow morning, and then southwest for the Golden Horseshoe, up to 60 kilometers per hour when you factor in the gusts. Forecast for southwestern Ontario looks like -4 degrees down in the Windsor area, but colder as you head out toward London. Wind chills about -8 to -11, depending on where you are. Quite warm actually down in Windsor, 7 degrees, and that'll happen earlier in the day, but still very windy. Gusts up to about 60 kilometers per hour through at least the first half of the day tomorrow. For the Golden Horseshoe, we're looking at temperatures here that are going to be about -5 with the winds about -8 to -11. The winds, though, around the Golden Horseshoe tonight, less than they are in southwestern Ontario, and that's why the wind chills are going to be pretty much the same. For tomorrow, we're looking at daytime highs around 5-6 degrees, but this is going to come a little bit later in the day. We'll start the day closer to about -2, -3, and then we're going to see the temperatures rise near noon, about 11 a.m. to noon. The risk for some isolated, patchy freezing rain or freezing drizzle just before we transition over to some rainfall. Tomorrow, generally about 5 to 8 millimeters of rain, windy conditions, 5 degrees. Then as we head through Thursday, 2 degrees with a mix of sun and cloud. Friday starts out as a mix of sun and cloud, and this is, of course, being New Year's Day. But late in the day, we're looking at a transition to rainfall. Rainfall carrying us through till Saturday morning, and possibly more as we head through Sunday. Kelda.
All right, well, remember our umbrellas. Thanks so much, Nick.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
A group of people in Vaughan say an employee at their local Tim Hortons brightens their day, and so they wanted to pay it forward.
He literally changes lives every single morning.
We'll tell you what the group did for their special hero coming up. There have been many heroes that have been recognized during this pandemic, but a community in Vaughan wanted to acknowledge a special worker they see almost every day while they pick up their coffee. Take a look at what they had in store for their local hero.
There is this guy named Vishnu who works at the Tim Hortons drive-thru. He makes your day in a time of COVID and everybody being so kind of meh. This guy, he fist bumps you, he gives you weather reports. Everybody in the community thinks they're special and he only does it with them. And it turns out he's doing it with everybody.
Happy holidays. I'll see you. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Thank you.
I started realizing that I loved coming to this drive-through because Vishnu was there. I just thought that he was waiting his entire shift just to see me because he made me feel so special. Sometimes I wouldn't even buy something from the drive-through. I just wanted to see him and I would just say good morning and go off to work.
Vishnu shared that he used to go to York University, he studied IT, he had to stop because of finances.
I had to choose either it was school or work, so I thought let me take some time off and then I can continue in the future. But and time passed by and you know, you never get financially freedom because there's always something, right? Yeah, no, you're kidding me. My God, thank you very much, eh? Seriously. Woo! Oh, God. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. My God, I appreciate it. You don't have to do this.
We know.
Jeez.
So, Vishnu, all of these people are here. I know rumors have kind of circulated that the community is trying to do something nice for you.
Seriously. My brother.
All of them.
It's amazing how people appreciate the small thing that I did, which was giving back the smile. They always give it to me and positive words.
Thank you for the donut. I know. He literally changes lives every single morning.
And I love people, especially, like, you know, this is who I am, giving back, right? Making people smile, and thanks, thank you to everybody, all these people made this happen.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Chris Glover will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. And we will leave you now with shots of our beautiful waterfront as the sun set earlier tonight. Have a great night, everyone.